Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to another video and welcome back to the back storage room because that's where I'm filming today. So long story. Anyway, today I have for you some fall recommendations. We're going to go through some young adult books and then I'll also talk about some adult books. So how I chose these, I chose books that I thought were creepy, unsettling, like magic, especially like dark magic, dark fairy tale, mystery thrillers, secret societies, a lot of things like that. I don't really have any dark academia on here, academia, however you say it. I don't like that, apparently. I just haven't read any that I've actually enjoyed. So anyway, let's do the young adult books first. So mostly, I'm not going to give you a massive long plot summary for each one of these, but I will tell you why I think it has fall vibes. So the first one is one of my all-time favorite young adult like horror novels. We have it listed as horror. I mean, it's not like super scary. It's more just like a dark fairy tale. So this one is called House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. And I would say, well, one, it's short too, but I would say this definitely gives me fall vibes because it has, well, it's creepy. As you can see, there's like, is that blood, I think, coming off her face? It is creepy, but it's a dark, like, fairy tale sort of, it's not a retelling or anything, but it just is sort of like a modern day fairy tale. On the back, it says it's like a eerie, real world haunting fairy tale about liminal spaces, which is what it's about. Dark, twisted novel, brilliant concepts, glamorous characters with secrets, dark and delicious, malice and mystery. I love books where there's like, I don't know, sisters that each have really distinct personalities, and there's definitely some supernatural stuff in here. So anyway, I highly recommend this book. It has such a cool ending, let's just say that. The next one is also young adult, and that is I Hunt Killers by Barry Lyga. We know I give very few books 5 stars, definitely not young adult books, and definitely not mysteries. This is the best mystery thriller I've ever read, including adult or anything. It really should be labeled, I think, as more like adult, even though, I mean, it's listed as young adult, and it's decently long, actually. But yeah, best thing in YA fiction since The Hunger Games. Well, I'll tell you, it's like 10 times better than The Hunger Games. But also, just because the main character is young, I don't feel like it's necessarily just young adult. It says, what if the world's most notorious serial killer was your dad? The main character, yes, his dad was killed like 120 people or something like that, and is now locked up in prison. But now there's a copycat killer, and the police realize that maybe the kid, the son, is the only one that can help them find the killer because he knows the workings of a serial killer's mind. And it's really creepy because like he was taken along as a small child to these killings. And I mean, it's very disturbing. It's very graphic in places. There's a lot of blood, and you start to wonder if like the dad is doing something somehow from prison, if he's actually involved in this or what. And the main character just doesn't want to turn out like his dad. So there's a lot of like internal conflict because he's afraid that he will also turn out like his dad. But anyway, I absolutely loved it. It's a trilogy, and I think you don't have to read the second book or third book at all. Those two are more like together. Like the second one does leave off on a big cliffhanger. This one you can really just read as a full story by itself. I definitely like this one way better than the other two. I'd almost recommend that you just read this one. The other two were just fine. But anyway, this book is amazing and I cannot wait to read it again. The next young adult book I have for us is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This one is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, which I don't know that fairy tale. I had to go and read a summary of it before I read this book. This book is listed in our library as fantasy. It's fantasy, horror, romance is what this book is. Like there's a little bit of everything. So it says it's haunting, atmospheric. Yeah, the atmosphere, they're definitely, I mean, there's dead bodies, magic, long twisting dark hallways. There's ghostly visions of like, well, there's her sister's deaths, and so like she sort of sees her sister's dead bodies and how they were killed. And anyway, it's actually way more intense than I thought it was going to be, and I loved it. And the sequel just came out. It's called A House of Roots and Ruin, and I cannot wait to read that one. The next young adult book that definitely gives me fall vibes is Over My Dead Body by Sweeney Boo, and it is a graphic novel. I read very few graphic novels, but I do recommend this one. Oh, this is called Dark Academia, so I lied. I do have some of that on here. Witches, magical mystery, witches. This is like, it was pitched to me as The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, the Netflix show, meets Hogwarts, like Harry Potter. And I was like, yeah, that is what this is. So I do recommend this one if you like either of those things. And I read it because obviously I loved Harry Potter, but there is a mystery as well, dark academia. And yeah, if you want a short little graphic novel, highly recommend. And our last young adult book is The Diviners by Liv Bray. Yes, don't be scared by how big it is. It's huge. And it is a series. I think it's a quartet, but you can just read the first one and it's fine. That's all I did. The main story's wrapped up in here. There are, the same characters in the other books, but it's like different stories. So this one is creepy because it's, we listed it as horror, but it's also sort of historical. It's set in the the Roaring 20s in New York. So if you like the Roaring 20s, like Great Gatsby kind of thing, you might like this a lot. And there is an ancient serial killer that has reawoken, like that's the magic part of it too, and he is now killing people again. He's like this ancient evil force, and you see some chapters, some points of view are from his victims, like as he's getting ready to kill them, and so that part's really creepy. And your main character, there's actually quite a few main characters, and you do switch points of view. The very main character, though, is Evie, and she has some powers that she doesn't really know anything about or understand at first, but so she's one of the diviners. All these people that have powers are diviners, and they realize that they're going to have to come together and stop this evil force. Okay, let's get into our adult books. So honestly, I read this one so long ago that I don't remember as much about it to tell you the plot summary, but I remember that Slate House by David Mitchell was one of my favorite books I read last year. It's super short. I read it in one day, and it is one of the best, I'm going to say horror, but it's also kind of sci-fi. If you like not knowing whether it's horror or sci-fi, you might like this book. If you read Piranesi and you were like, you kind of liked Piranesi, but it wasn't like really your thing, but you kind of want something along those lines, this is like Piranesi, but like 5 times better. There is sort of some paranormal stuff going on, a paranormal aspect to it, but then there's also a sci-fi aspect to it, which I really liked. It's almost like little vignettes that take place over different time periods about this same house and like this creepy stuff that's going on. And that's really all I can tell you. I would say go in knowing very little about this, and you're going to be super intrigued. Really wild take on a haunted house story. Next, I'm sure you've heard of H.P. Lovecraft. Highly recommend just read any of his stories at Halloween time or in the fall, because that's what I love to do. My favorite, of course, is The Call of Cthulhu, because it's like the classic. I have his entire works here. I have read quite a few of his other short stories. I remember reading At the Mountains of Madness, and I really liked it. The Thing on the Doorstep is actually the book that inspired Tale of the Body Thief by Anne Rice, the 4th book in the Vampire Chronicles series. So I definitely had to read that one. I liked it too. They're all kind of in the same style, the same vein. They're very similar, so you could really almost read any of them, but there are some more famous than others. So anyway, if you want like, otherworldly monsters, things that like they don't even have words for, some of there will be like, oh, there's no words to describe the angles of this building. It's very bizarre, but anyway, super atmospheric and great for the fall. Those are all the ones I have physically. The rest I will just show here on the screen. 2 books by Brom. First, we have Lost Gods by Brom. I read this last year, and it was super creepy. I gave it like 4 stars. It does bog down a little bit in the middle with like the politics of purgatory. Like he's basically in like purgatory, and anyway, there's a lot of politics there apparently. So that kind of does bog down a little bit. But there's creepy children in it. I mean, there's some creepy stuff. The beginning and the end were especially kind of scary and morbid. The middle does bog down a little bit, but if you've never read Brom, I've read 2 books by him now. I mean, he's a great writer, but yeah, very creepy. The other Brom is Sleuth. I just finished it. It is set in the 1600s. We're talking Salem witchcraft type stuff. It's set in Salem, and this is definitely a take on, it reminds me of The Crucible, the play by Arthur Miller, if you've ever had to read that. And it's like that if at the end, instead of what really happens, I don't want to spoil The Crucible for you, if John Proctor, who is wrongly accused of witchcraft, if he decides that he is going to team up with the devil, who's not even really the devil, and actually get revenge on everyone in the town. So it was amazing. I loved it, and I highly recommend. The next is a little lesser known, and that is The Club du Mât. This one, I can't remember the author, but it'll be here on the screen. I like this book because it was the inspiration for the movie The Ninth Gate with Johnny Depp. Older, really kind of weird movie, but I loved it. It was directed by Roman Polanski. Anyway, always used to watch that movie like once a year. Found out it was based on this book. Secret societies, if you like that kind of thing, especially that deal with books, like they're trying to track down this one book that's been lost, and at least that's why I was in the movie. I'm pretty sure that's how it was in the book. Honestly, I liked the movie better than the book, but I'm going to recommend the book too. But if you remotely like this, then definitely check out the movie The Ninth Gate. Okay, 2 to go. We're going to end with a sort of positive one here towards the end, is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. If you want something a little more fun, because it does deal with witchcraft, I feel like it's a little more fallish, but it's a fantasy romance, and it's very like low stakes, not as much as something like Legends and Lattes, but definitely a little bit low stakes fantasy. And it's set in the real world though. I love books that are still set in the real world, and the romance, I was just like, it's sort of there, but I loved the world. I loved the main character. She was funny. I thought the writing was really funny and witty. So if you're looking for just something kind of like Legends and Lattes, then definitely check this one out. Finally, the last book I have is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. I read this one last year too around Halloween time, and I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't like my favorite. I definitely like her young adult book, Neverworld Wake, a lot better. But Night Film is about like this occult movie director whose movies are so intense and so horrifying that they can't even show them in theaters. So they don't even like release them. There's like this underground like network of people that you got to like try to get a copy of the movie, and it's a whole thing. And anyway, this director's daughter has died. I think, yeah, it was like a suicide, but was it? And like what really happened? And so the main character is actually a journalist, an investigative journalist whose career has previously been ruined by that director, I think is what it was, something like that. And now he's trying to figure out what happened to the daughter to try to get his career back, basically. So he's got to like be sucked into this world. And the ending wasn't as satisfying to me as like the journey of the mystery and stuff. But anyway, I still highly recommend. So those are some books that I think are a little bit underrated, a little bit underhyped, that you don't hear about as much on BookTube. I could have recommended like Grady Hendrix books, The Secret History, Mexican Gothic, Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Interview with the Vampire. I could have recommended any of those, and I do, but I just thought I'd try to give you some lesser known books. So anyway, let me know down below if you've read any of these, if you like reading them in the fall time, and I will talk to you guys again later. Bye.